sorry, that just got me. Got it. Let me just click off. There we are. So Menobliss came about 6-7 years ago because I was having quite a hard time coming through perimenopause, and I really needed to educate myself. So back then there wasn't much around, but I found a course with Jenny Burrell, and it was quite an extensive training, and then just putting small steps in place, and also just really just understanding what was going on in my body. That was a massive thing, because, you know, people weren't talking about it, and it certainly wasn't discussed in the workplace. There was no support. Your GPs were just offering antidepressants. It was quite tough, and I don't know, if I hadn't educated myself, I wouldn't have been able to support myself. And then I think moving forward, I was chatting to people and they were all struggling as well. So that was how I started setting up workshops initially. And obviously from COVID, I've more ended up going online, but I still do face-to-face workshops as well. So, and since then, I've also trained as a yoga for menopause teacher. I'm trained aromatherapist in essential oils to support hormone balance as well. And I've recently done a Menofit training, which is exercise. So my background is fitness instructor, it's therapist, it's all the health and well-being. So I had to be in a good place to be able to support other people as well. So over the years, not just trainings, but lots of research as well, because there's always new research coming out. So let me just find my indicator. There we are, we're there. So we're just going to have a very quick discussion on what perimenopause and menopause are. The symptoms, how can they be recognised? Are they menopausal, or are they stress? Are they down to something else? How does the menopause affect individuals at work and at home really as well? Because all of this will roll over, but obviously this is more defined at the workplace. How does stress impact the menopause? What lifestyle changes could you make to support your menopause symptoms? And then how can managers and organisations help? Your legal requirements of employers, because your employer does have a legal requirement to support you. And what are your rights? And then we'll do a quick question and answer. But just remember, all through way through this, Lucy's going to check the chat box. So if you have got a question, just throw it in there. So Menopause 101. So I just threw up some statistics. Now, I'm not being rude, but I can't see all the things. So I'm just going to pull it up off my phone. So these statistics, they're quite recent. They are very recent, from 2 days ago, actually. So 4.4 million women in the workplace are menopausal. That's 10% of the working population. 10% of women have left the workforce because of menopause. This is massive. 1.88 billion GDP is the amount of money lost in productivity and hours due to the menopause every year. And then 1 in 4 women are considering leaving the workforce because of menopause. And that's resources from Health and Her app corporate pages. So what is the menopause? So it's a natural aging process. We all go through it, but it's defined as 1 year after your last menstrual period. Average age 51. If you're under 51, it's defined as 2 years. 4 stages of menopause. So we're in menopause for a lot of years. Basically, pre-menopause, from the date of your first menstrual period, you're in pre-menopause. Yeah, so right back when you were a teenager or prior. And that is leading all the way up to perimenopause, but I'm going to come just before that, late reproductive stage. Now, that's going to happen at any age. That could happen in your 20s, it could happen in your 30s. There is nothing to say that it's going to happen in your 40s or your 50s, because as we know, everybody's journey is totally unique. and everybody will experience these stages at different points in their life. So pre-menopause up to the point of late reproductive stage. So if you've not actually heard of late reproductive stage, it is where you are having probably quite regular menstrual cycle. You might have noticed a slight difference in the length of the flow, maybe a bit heavier, but the difference, you might be going longer between periods or maybe a little bit shorter. But there is one good bit about that late reproductive stage. You often have a heightened libido. And that is because the brain is talking to the ovaries going, come on, what's going on? You haven't got many eggs left. We still need time. We've still got time to reproduce. So often a person does find their libido is a bit heightened. However, you might also be finding you're getting a few little symptoms like brain fog, memory loss, loss of concentration, maybe getting a bit moodier. Maybe you've not quite got the energy you had, maybe a little bit more tired. Maybe you're not sleeping great. But are you recognizing those symptoms as menopause? Because you're still having a regular period. So you might not associate it with menopause. Some of those symptoms could also be associated with stress. So it's a really fine line. And if you went to your GP and if they're not particularly menopausally trained, they might be going, well, you're having regular periods, so you're not menopausal. But you might be in that very, very late reproductive stage. And that is basically going to morph then into perimenopause, the third stage. Now, perimenopause is what most of us are probably concerned with. So this is where these hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, in fact, everything, cortisol, insulin, they're all starting to fluctuate and decline in the body. Yeah. And this is where you're going to get the most symptoms. That stage can last, on average, 2 to 10 years or more, unfortunately. Now, not everybody will experience symptoms, and some people might get away with very light symptoms, but others, it might be really debilitating. And then your final stage is postmenopause. So that's that 1 year after, or 2 years after that last menstrual period. And that is the remainder of your life. So that could last 30 plus years, quite a long time. And what I'd like to say there is, at that point, hormones should have maybe started to settle. As you come into postmenopause, they should have settled to the new levels. But you may still get some symptoms. I'd like to say all your symptoms are going to go, but they're not. They will for some, but not for everybody. And I'm a prime example of that because I'm postmenopausal. And hey ho, guess what? The hot flushes and the night sweats are back. They've just come back with a vengeance. So, you can't actually say that everything's going to go. And you might go quite a few years like I did without any night sweats. And then all of a sudden they came back last summer when we had that really hot summer. So things are changing all the time. And I think, and when we're in the workplace and even with our own journey, we have to remember that we might come to a point where we're supporting somebody with something and that might ease off, but then it might come back later. It might be worse. So it's a really ongoing process for quite a lot of years. So I've just got a few symptoms here. There's 34 plus symptoms. And I think they're saying now there's something like more like 60 odd. But just remember, not 20% of the population of people that are, I can't even use the word women because we've been including transgender and everybody in here, yeah? So I'm going to just say 20% of people will not experience any symptoms at all. 60% will probably manage them, but for the other 20%, they could be really debilitating. So they might be experiencing loads of symptoms together, which if you think about it, if you're not sleeping very well, if you're getting headaches, if you're getting heart palpitations, if you're a little bit dizzy, if you're getting joint pains and you're getting night sweats, hot flushes, that's a heck of a lot of stuff going on in your body. So just a few physical symptoms, and you can throw any more in the chat box that you want to at me because there are loads more. So cycle change, length and flow, headaches, migraines, dizziness, weight gain, maybe struggling to lose weight, hot flushes and night sweats, joint pains, you've got muscle aches there as well, fatigue, low energy. And then looking more at emotional symptoms, starting with insomnia, brain fog, memory issues, lack of concentration, depression, mood swings, irritability, loss of confidence, low self-esteem, and maybe social isolation as well, because you just don't like the person you've become, and you just don't want to be around people, because it does really have a massive impact on some of us. So how is this impacting on the workplace? So you might find that you were once this really bubbly, outgoing person, but you've maybe getting a little bit irritable, maybe a little bit snappy, maybe not quite so motivated and jolly as you were. And you will notice this among your colleagues. You will notice that they've changed, but you might not be able to put your finger on it. And these mood swings, eventually, they may be going to lose motivation in the job. It might be a job that they've absolutely loved, but that imbalance of hormones is just making them lose total motivation, which eventually is going to lead to an impaired performance. So if you think back to how many days and hours of productivity I pulled up on those statistics, we're classing that within that impaired performance. Maybe they're not hitting the targets like they were. And then they might just get to the point where they just really can't be bothered, or they're really not feeling very well at all. And so they're taking more sick days than normal. So there's a lot to think about there. So looking at stress and the menopause, so a lot of the symptoms are the same. So if you think, so this is where you've got to identify the difference as well. So mood swings are a good source of for stress. Your brain fog, your lack of concentration, your memory problems. If you've got that many boxes open at the same time, you're not going to remember everything. You're going to get a bit snappy, a bit tense. So we've got to identify the difference. So when I always say to people, track your symptoms, write everything down, look at what triggered that. Yeah, because it could be even something that's going on at home that then you've brought into the office, workplace, and somebody said something, and then that's just triggered a big outburst, and vice versa. And we're also going to look at how nutrition can stress the body out, and exercise as well. Those are the three main things I'm going to look at today. So quick look at the science. So cortisol is our main stress hormone. Now, it's really, really important. We need cortisol because it keeps us alive. It's our survival hormone. So I always say, if you think back to when you were at school and in your science lesson, you had this caveman that was getting chased by this saber-toothed tiger. So this caveman, his brain called on his adrenals to release cortisol because his brain sensed that he was in danger. For that cortisol to work at full pelt, for him to get away from the danger, it then needed to send a message to the pancreas to trigger insulin. That would give him his energy. So hopefully it got enough time and he got away from that saber-toothed tiger. Now, once he'd got away from that saber-toothed tiger, he went to his man cave and he rested. So that is the biological behind the stress response. And that stress response has never changed, yeah? But unfortunately, today's modern stressors, they're all the time. And most of us are on high alert all the time. So our body's in a constant state of stress. Now, once our hormones, they work in synergy with each other. So once we start coming into perimenopause, our hormone levels are starting to fluctuate, they're starting to decline. So straight away, that is triggering a cortisol response. That's through no fault of your own, that's through not through any outside stressors that's within the body. So straight away, you're pumping more cortisol through your body and more insulin. Now, if you think back to the caveman days, he used that insulin, he used that cortisol as energy to get away, yeah? And then the levels came back down to normal. In today's modern world, we're probably not using that energy in the same way. I mean, prime example this morning, I was stuck in a traffic jam for well over an hour. Now, I didn't feel particularly stressed, I don't think, while I was sat in it, because I knew I couldn't go anywhere. But you know what? I was over half an hour late to teach my yoga class. When I walked in, I felt really stressed. Fortunately, I was going to then move. So I would start shifting that insulin around my body, and it wasn't going to sit into cells. But if I'd been going to work in an office, where would that insulin have gone? I'd have just sat there at my desk and it would have been in the cells. And then eventually it would have just built up in my body. Okay, so we need, if we are stressed, we do need to keep moving and get rid of that buildup. So even a little walk can help just to bring those stress levels down. Right, so I've got estrogen and progesterone on there, and I'm just going to show you this next graph. Let's see, will that move on? Yeah. So if we think that cortisol is produced from the adrenal glands and from the mother hormone, pregnenolone, sorry, can't even pronounce that, it's late at night, isn't it? Pregnenolone, I still can't do it. Anyway. So the adrenal glands, they're going to produce your cholesterol, which is converted into your hormones, yeah? And then your mother hormone, pregnenolone, that is going to convert into progesterone and into cortisol. It's also going to be converted into DHEA, and that will convert into your estrogens and testosterones. Now, the problem is, as we start coming through perimenopause, most of our progesterone is produced as we ovulate. So as our periods are becoming less and less, there's less ovulation happening. So we're probably not producing as much progesterone as we were. Cortisol loves progesterone because it can steal it straight away to convert it for its own use, because whatever happens, the body needs to survive. So progesterone is supporting our nervous system. It's supporting our mood. It's supporting our sleep. So when we look at stress levels, and when I've just said to you about your mood, your brain function, all of that, a lot of that is because of low progesterone. Yeah. And then it's also going to pinch estrogen and testosterone. So if I said to you, if all your hormones were allowed to work at optimum levels, if you brought your stress down, then your menopause symptoms may not be as bad as they are if you're really stressed out. Yeah, so it's about getting all these other hormones into the best balance that we can and getting the most out of them. So we've got to look at lowering stress levels. And everybody's stress is going to be so different. Shall I just let this person in? I'll let them in. They're in. Yeah, so everybody's stress is going to be so different. So for some, it might be, there might be family life. For some, it might be aging parents. For others, it might be that they're taking a lot of medication. They might have a lot of health issues. You know, all of these things are stressing our bodies out. For others, it might be that their work life is so crazy. They're on the road a lot. They're in meetings. They might just be eating anything that they can just get their hands on. Other people might be exercising to crazy extent, but another person might just be sat on the settee all the time. So stress comes in so many different ways. And what you also might not be aware of is we're absorbing what we call endocrine disruptors from the environment all the time. So pesticides on our food, maybe perfumes that we're using, fuel, plastics, and all of these are starting to upset our hormone system as well. But that is a whole another webinar, and I haven't got time to move into that tonight. So identifying triggers. So we've said stress. So you've really got to look at what your triggers are for stress. What is stressing you out? Try and just say no sometimes. If you can, just say no and just take some time out for you, because it's about getting self-care now for you. Nutrition. Anybody struggling with mid-afternoon slumps? I know a lot of people do. 2:30, 3 o'clock. All of a sudden we need our beds, afternoon nana nap. But you can't do that if you're at work. You just can't. So what do? We reach for the caffeine, which is going to raise cortisol again. Pump insulin back in. Guess what? By 5 o'clock, we're tired again. And then the right kind of exercise. So now I know a lot of people that are still running marathons in their 40s, 50s and 60s while they're here. And that might be right for them, you know, but it certainly wasn't. It's not right for me anymore. So I've stopped doing that, and I will go into better. I would say, I'm not going to say a better, but an exercise routine that would more support your hormones. So as I've already said, stress has an effect on symptoms, yeah, because it's blocking the amount of estrogen, progesterone and testosterone that you're going to produce. And a lot of us, if we're stressed, what do we turn for? We turn to alcohol, we turn to sugar, anything that's a quick fix, energy fix, something that just makes us feel nice, happy. But eventually, if you don't get your stress under control, it can cause physical issues and it can cause mental health issues. And then at some point, you're going to burn out. So, you know, you cannot be everything to everybody. And self-care it starts with you. You've got to look after yourself first before you can start looking after other people. So a very quick look at nutrition, because these are little bits that you can just do to support your hormones. So estrogen, you've got estrogen receptors all over your body, yeah? So, you know, when you're getting your brain fog, your mood swings, your hot flushes. So we know that the brain's got estrogen receptors in. Maybe some people are getting heart palpitations. Maybe we're getting achy joints. We get osteoporosis, some people do. So you've also got estrogen receptors in your gut. Now, estrogen is supporting your gut microbiome. With that decline in estrogen, we do not have such a diverse bacteria in the gut. So you might notice that you're more bloated, maybe a little bit more flatulence, and maybe you're a bit constipated. So we need to keep the gut moving. So if you've ever listened to any nutritionists talk about gut health, there's a thing called supporting your gut by eating 30 different plant foods a week. And it's not that hard to do. Yeah, I can do that easy. And you start out and the first day or two, you think, wow, I've done 25 here. That's all right. But you can't repeat. You've got to keep adding a new one in. So that is a really good place to start, because, you know, there is a strong correlation between the gut-brain connection. And you've got to think, your hormones are coming from your brain. It's your brain that's controlling it all as well. So we've got to support it. So 30 plant-based foods a week, if you can, is a good place to start. Blood sugar roller coaster. Right. I have a full 3-hour workshop on this, and I'm going to condense it into 3 minutes. So if I said to you, right, I got up this morning, I had a cup of coffee, I grabbed some toast, I got to work. whoa, didn't feel very great. A bit energy slump. I grabbed another cup of coffee. Oh, and the biscuit tin was there, so I grabbed a couple of biscuits on the way. Then I went for my lunch. Canteen food's not so great. I just picked up something quick. Another cup of coffee. 3 o'clock, I'm a bit tired again. I've got that mid-afternoon slump. Guess what? I went for some more coffee. Oh, it's a big bar of chocolate there that I really fancied. That would go down nice. Get home 6, 7 o'clock at night. Do you know what? I'm absolutely shattered. I'm just going to pull something out of the freezer, chuck it in the microwave, go to bed. Wow, I'm tired out, but I can't sleep. Maybe I sleep for a couple of hours, then I'm awake again. So what have I just done to myself? I have thrown myself on the blood sugar roller coaster from the minute I got up in the morning. Yeah. So if you think when you get up in the morning, as I said before, cortisol, it wakes you up. Yeah. So try and avoid caffeine for at least 30 minutes when you get out of bed. Think about having some warm water with some lemon in it or lime or something like that, something that's going to just support your digestive system. Then maybe breakfast. So in every meal we eat, we need to be looking at a fistful of protein. That's going to be about a quarter of your plate. A quarter of your plate can be carbohydrate, but it needs to be fibrous carbohydrate. So we're looking at things like wholemeal bread, brown rice, brown pasta. And then half of your plate needs to be veg. Yeah. Now, I know you're going to say to me, well, I can't eat that stuff in the morning for breakfast. No, you probably can't. So think about having porridge or overnight oats. Yeah. That's got a lot of fiber in it, good soluble fiber in there. Add in. So mixed seeds, nuts, berries, flaxseed. They're phytoestrogens. I'm going to come into those in a minute. Chia seeds. So how many plants have I just put in that bowl? I've got quite a lot in that bowl to start with. And then I might put some, if I want to add some plant-based protein powder in there, there's lots on the market. One I like is hemp. Or if I don't like protein powders, because think again, they're quite processed, I could maybe put a few nuts in. Yeah. So think of putting things like walnuts in that are essential fatty acids that are going to support brain health. Almonds are quite good. They'll support digestion. And then, right, have I had my cup of coffee yet? No, I've not. So I'm going to eat my breakfast. Then I'm going to have my coffee. And you're going to say to me, I ain't got time. I can't got time for that. I've got 2-hour drives to work. Yeah. So maybe see if you can wait until you get to work to have that first cup of coffee, that you've actually put some food in your stomach first. Yeah. And then hopefully, maybe, I don't know, 11:30, get rid of that next coffee, have a fruit tea, have something that's going to support your system. Green tea's good, but bear in mind, it's still got a little bit of caffeine in it. And then lunch, look at, again, your protein, good fist size, quarter of a plate, carbs, maybe a big salad. So eat the rainbow. How many colours can you get on your plate? How many plants can you get on that plate? Yeah. You'll be surprised how many you can get on. Right. If you want another cup of coffee, make this your last one at lunchtime. Okay. Because caffeine is known to keep us awake on the night as well. And it is stimulating cortisol. So afternoon, maybe you're going to try a different fruit tea or a green tea, or maybe just some water. And then your evening meal, again, it's going to be like your lunch was. Yeah. I appreciate sometimes people do need to snack in between. So maybe we're looking at some fruit. Maybe we could do Greek yogurt with some berries in. Maybe you could have apple with some nut butter if you're into nut butters. maybe some cucumbers, carrots with some hummus, just some little snacks, just something light, but that's just going to keep you going. Yeah. Don't ever let yourself get so hungry, because what else is going to happen is your cortisol is going to go, whoa, really hungry. So cortisol is going to rise again. Then it's going to pump insulin through. And what you're going to grab, you're going to grab the nearest thing you can. Yeah. And it's generally going to be an energy snack. So chocolate, bag of crisps, something like that. Okay. So you can ask me questions about that in the end bit if you want. So looking at phytoestrogens. So these are plant-based estrogens that are said to mimic natural estrogen in the body. Now, not everybody can absorb phytoestrogens. And for anybody having had estrogen receptive cancers, you're better off speaking to a medical professional before you even think about putting them in, because they won't suit everybody. But most of us will actually be eating them anyway. Yeah. So things like your flax seeds, your cruciferous veg, your broccoli, your cauliflowers, your kale, chickpeas, lentils, all those sort of things are phytoestrogens. So try and get, if you're not on the estrogen receptive list, try and get some of those into your diet every day. I mean, I always sprinkle flaxseed into my porridge in the morning. So that's just giving me a little bit boost there. But you know what? I actually don't know if I'm absorbing it. Only a nutritionist or probably a blood test could actually tell you that. And then we need to support brain health. So omega-3s, yeah. So your oily fish, your avocados, your walnuts, and all your purple foods. So these are great antioxidants. The more purple, the better. So I always throw a pile of blueberries on my porridge in the morning as well. And the bigger the blueberry, the better they are, because they've got more antioxidants within them. And then hydration is really important as well. So we are looking at 1 to 2 litres of fluid a day. I mean, obviously that depends on your activity level as well. But if we're going to keep this digestive system rolling properly, we need fluid in it. Because the fibre, it needs to move through the system. Yeah, and also the brain. Everything in your body needs water. I'm just going to take a mouthful now. Right, so on an exercise basis, look at trying to get a little bit of strength training in there. And it doesn't have to be big weights in the gym, you know. It can be a little set of hand weights at home. We start with what we've got, all right? But we need to support bone strength. We need to support muscle mass. And your muscle mass does decline. Your bone strength declines as well. So supporting our metabolism, okay? So that's important. Anything that's got the heel strike is supporting bone strength as well, because we really need to make sure our bones are strong and healthy. So walking, dancing. So when I said to you, I don't do with long runs anymore. My sessions are, I do train, I do weights, I do a bit of walking, not as much walking as I'd like to. But I do more low intensity combined with high intensity sessions. Anything from 5 minutes to 20 minutes is ample, as long as you're getting your heart rate up. Yeah. So you're keeping that cardiovascular system going. You're spiking your metabolism. And the bonus with your low intensity HIIT training is that you will keep burning after as well for 24 hours. And then we need to offset that with some yoga / Pilates and that mind body. So it can be anything. It could be the Tai Chi. It could be anything that's just bringing you into that state of calm, that's triggering that parasympathetic nervous system. Right. So those were little tips for you. So let's get into the workplace. So there are 2 main points of legislation within that an employer has to adhere to. So we've got the Equality Act 2010. Now that supports gender and disability. So menopause could become protected under those characteristics. So it's only about 3 weeks ago that the government actually threw menopause out as a protected characteristic. However, it is still covered under gender and disability. Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Your employer has a responsibility to make sure that your workplace is safe for you. So they have to carry out risk assessments. Now, there's been loads of cases of employment tribunals surrounding menopause lately. And a lot of these cases, these people have won them, against their employers. So from an employer's point of view, they need to be looking after the staff. And with your Equality Act 2010, I'm moving on into, I'm just going to move over to reasonable adjustments. So if you think if there is a disabled person within your workplace, your employer has to make reasonable adjustments to support them, because if they don't, they are actually liable for an employment tribunal. So with menopause, there's lots of reasonable adjustments we can make, but just let me tell you this before, because otherwise I'll forget. If you have been having issues with, I don't know, say like I'm going to use achy joints as an example. So say you're working on a computer all day, but you need an extra little bit of support, or you might need some time off because you're having real problems with your joints. Your employer should be trying to help you and support you with a reasonable adjustment. If you are still struggling a year later, that could be classed as a disability. So although menopause has been thrown out as a protected characteristic, we can pull it through gender and disability. Okay, so communication for menopause in the workplace is absolute key. And I have been working with businesses over the last year now, 15 months, and there is so much more receptivity within a lot of businesses, and men as well. I recently sat on a panel and there was some men on there. They were giving great stories. They were there wanting to support the people, their employees. They were line managers and younger men, not just older men, but also they're wanting to support the wives. So there is a lot of help there. But it's that open door. So I think bringing menopause awareness into the workplace just through even a short webinar, it just starts to get people talking. And then people go, well, actually, I know somebody that's maybe struggling with that. So talking to line managers. But you need to be able to approach your line manager, and there's businesses are looking at this more now. So reasonable adjustments, these just small little things in the office. So say, for example, say I'm getting 20 to 30 hot flushes a day and I'm absolutely dripping wet. What can my line manager do to support me? Well, maybe they could give me a desk fan. And that's not going to cost a lot of money. Hopefully, and not all workplaces do have this, I know, I'm aware of that, but maybe there's a separate room I could go to. Maybe the washroom facilities are good. Maybe there's good locker facilities where I can keep changes of clothes, and that I can go and get changed. Maybe I can just go and do that without having to tell somebody every time, oh, crikey, I'm sweating like crazy. It's just about people maybe supporting you and an awareness. So if you're, say if you're having really poor sleep and you're really struggling to get into work on time, maybe flexible working. There's lots of different ways. Maybe you start a little bit later. Maybe you work from home if your job will allow it. But you see, every workplace is going to be different because every workplace has got different hours, different job roles. And there again, job role changes. Maybe we look at changing our job. We take something that's maybe a few hours less a week, just on a temporary basis. Yeah. And then we set a time to review, see how it's going on. But it's going to be constant review process. It's not kind of like, oh, well, we've done this to support them. We've done that. But you've got to keep reviewing because, as I said earlier, symptoms will keep changing. Yeah. And so what one symptom might have gone, we might need support in other ways. And like, if you're really struggling with mood swings, how's somebody going to support you doing that? Are they going to give you a bit of time out? You know, a room that you can just go in, just sit down, just have 5 minutes, maybe go and have a little drink, cup of tea, cup of coffee on your own in a room. Just give you some time out. Maybe there's some breathing exercises. If you're doing wellness days and things like that, there'll be there's all these apps on your phone now where they're going to give you some time just to go and do a little bit of breathing, listen to a meditation, just to sort of calm you down a little bit. So there's loads of ways that you can actually support your staff, but that's a whole another 20-minute topic. But so you're going to ask me questions shortly anyway. So support systems, champions and allies. A lot of places are also, they've got a menopause champion now. So this is where they train somebody up so they're becoming very familiar with the menopause. They're recognizing it's somebody that's approachable, that anybody can go to just to talk to them, just have time out. So your support systems, your wellness days, you can incorporate menopause as part of a wellness day. And then it's about creating change. It's about an awareness, being a supportive workplace, supporting your employees, being aware of the laws if you're an employer, being aware of that, and being aware of what could happen to you if you are not supporting your staff. And also, you know what? These menopausal people bring such a lot of life skills and experience to the role. Do you want to lose them? Do you want to have to train somebody else? Why it's so much better to support them going through this and retain your staff rather than them going, well, you're not giving me any support, you're not helping me, I'm leaving. And then you having to start employing somebody else. So creating change, introducing menopause policies, having one there so that all staff can go and look at that to see what they need to do to support your staff. Don't need to really go through that roundup because we've done it. So let's come into questions and say thank you for listening to all that. I've thrown a lot at you in what, 50 minutes.
Oh, thanks, Jill.
It was a heck of a lot, but
well
I needed
done.
to cover it all. And I'm shocking for running over.
Well, I would just, as soon as you put the blood sugar a roller coaster, I was like, oh my gosh, that's us in our office. Well, definitely me anyway.
It's so easy to get. It's so easy to get on though, you know.
It is. I start off with all good intentions, like my porridge in the morning with my blueberries, and then it just all goes pear-shaped. Seem to, I like really just need something sweet in the afternoon. Yeah. And a massive slump. It's definitely our office, and we're definitely caffeine fueled at the minute. We've got a lot on, so totally can. I just wondered when you mentioned about the high intensity interval training and the low intensity. Have you got something that you would recommend to people? Oh, hang on, I'll just stop the recording 1 second. Have you got something that you would recommend